Grant, I'll just let people come in before we officially get started. Grant, I think we're good to go. So, hi everybody. Thank you very much for coming for this webinar on the Climate Actions Work Engagement Fund. And this is a fund through the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, administered by Community Foundation Ireland. I'm delighted to be joined by Robert Mooney today, who's going to just give you a very brief overview of the Climate Actions Work programme. And then I will come back to go through the criteria in a little bit more detail and show you how to log on to the portal and make your application. And after that, we'll have a short Q&A session before we wrap up around 12 o'clock. So over to you, Rob.
Okay, Jason, sorry, I was in trouble unmuting myself. Thanks very much, Jason, appreciate it. I won't take very much time. This is just to introduce myself, the program and the background to it. So as Jason said, my name's Rob Mooney. I'm the lead for the National Dialogue on Climate Action in the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications. Just to give you a quick context for the Climate Actions Work Engagement Fund, we've been working on the National Dialogue, or the NDCA, for the last 3 years. 3 to 4 years, in fact. And really the National Dialogue was established as the core program to support public participation in the Climate Action Plan, so the annual version of the Climate Action Plan. It's comprised of a fairly significant program of public engagement, stakeholder engagement, engagement with communities across Ireland, as I said, for the last number of years. And really the point is, what we've heard from stakeholders and communities is that they do want the government to kind of lead by example in terms of infrastructure and systems development and establish all these opportunities for people to take action. There has been a conversation around, government must do X, Y, and Z, and then another conversation around individual behavioral change. But what we've heard from a lot of people, and we've learned from the program in the last few years, is that actually it's at the community level that effective climate action is realized. And we've heard from people that there are quite a lot of funding opportunities out there now. There's the Circular Economy Fund, the Climate Action Fund. There's a number of different programs, the SECs, et cetera, but people are struggling to navigate that world effectively. What we've also heard is that there are pockets of 4, 5, 6, 10 people in communities, all volunteering and all doing amazing work, but equally a lot of other people say that they want to do more and they want to take action, but they can't find the access point, or they don't know how to get involved. So this engagement fund is really established to try and do 3 things. One, help those green shoots of climate action promote what they're doing more effectively within their communities, help all these pockets of activity that are happening across these communities engage with each other more effectively. And the ultimate goal is, or the outcome of this is, if we can pool all our knowledge, our insights, our various different experiences over the years together at that community level, can we build more effective kind of hub structures or other things that help us build bigger and better programs at that level? So that's what the goal of the program is. And just to say thanks very much to Community Foundation Ireland for partnering with us on this, and I'll hand you over to Jason. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Rob. Brilliant. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm just going to take people through the criteria document that you'll be using to base your applications off. And just to say before I go into that, this is going to be recorded and it'll be published on our website and on the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications website for anybody to have a look at afterwards if you don't pick something up. Don't worry about it. So you can watch the recording now. It should be up very quickly after this. If not, it'll be up very early next week. And we also have a Q&A section. So if there is a Q&A box at the bottom, feel free to use that. We'll come to it at the end for around 15 minutes, hopefully. And if we don't get to your question at that point, do just shoot us an email at info@foundation.ie. I'll give you that email address at the end again if we don't quite get to your question. I'm just going to share my screen now, and I will bring up the criteria document. Grand. So, as Rob very brilliantly outlined, really, this is a fund set up for communities and specifically around engagement. And that's the key phrase that I think should run throughout this whole, throughout your whole process of considering what to apply for. This is not an application. This is not a fund for projects for, biodiversity projects specifically, or you want to do invasive species removal, or you want to install solar panels. This is very much centered around how to build your network. I'm going to borrow a phrase that Rob actually said before this call. That's to evolve your infrastructure. I think that's a really great phrase to use to help organizations grow themselves, to handle the sort of admin work, the sort of the work that you struggle with, the sort of the more I guess the more boring work that has to go into the various running of organizations. And this is a great opportunity to help you get funding for those. And we have 3 strands that you can apply for. So the first strand is the community awareness strand. And so this you can apply for up to €2,500. This is kind of centered around new organizations or organizations that are just starting out. They don't necessarily have to be environmental organizations. And that's another key point.
Jason, just check your screen share there so everybody can see it.
Oh, grand, sorry. Yep, we'll do. There you go. Actually, I haven't really moved anywhere down the screen, so that's all fine. Can you see me now?
Perfect. Very good.
Lovely. Yeah, so as I was saying, so this community awareness strand, this is focused on the kind of nitty-gritty of building up your organization from the sort of start of your journey. And again, it's not specific for environmental organizations. You can be any sort of group. You can be a school, you can be a sports club, you can be a religious organization. If you want to build awareness about the climate action that you're involved in, this is a great space to do it. And this €2,500 in the community awareness strand, that can be used for very simple things. If you need to host events, if you need to have venue hire, if you want to create content for social media, those are the kind of things that we're looking for in this strand. And again, it's for organizations just starting out. So if you are a new organization, you are eligible to apply. Don't worry about that. And we'll be able to kind of assist with that process. So the second strand then is the community engagement strand. And when thinking about this strand, by engagement, what we're talking about for this particular strand is connections with other organizations specifically. How do you build a network? How do you build a hub? How do you build sort of links with organizations who might be doing similar work than you in a different part of your community or a different nearby area or region? And this €5,000 that you can apply for is going to help with that. It's going to help establish those community hubs. It's going to help you connect with those other organizations, whether that is simply sharing ideas or whether it's coming together to trying to solve local problems. That's, I guess, community engagement in this strand. Community connections is another great way to think about that. Building connections with other organizations in your area and establishing those movements, those regional or local movements that help sort of help take your organization and your partner organization or other organizations to the next level. And the third strand is the community activation strand. And here you can apply for €10,000. Now this is for already established networks. If you're already working with organizations, if you're already working with schools, with, again, religious groups, with sports clubs, or other environmental groups or community centers, this is a great opportunity to actually build that even further, to scale up your initiatives that you have, to develop new initiatives around the environment and local climate action, or if you want to simply just do big awareness and big engagement pieces with your network, again, that is absolutely eligible here. And again, this can also be can also be used to establish those environmental hubs, those local community hubs that are focused on climate action, on biodiversity, on strengthening your place essentially on your community and making it a better place to live. And that's another key phrase that we want people to think about when they're making their application. What kinds of projects will make your place a greener, more healthy, happy place to live? So those are the three strands, and those are the kind of specifics of those three strands. And obviously, if you have questions, do reach out to us or do pop your question into the Q&A box. I'm just going to move on to the eligibility now. So eligibility, this strand is very open. It's very open to organizations. It's probably quicker just to say who it isn't for. And it's not for-profit companies. It's not for large, already established organizations with incomes of over 1 million. This is aimed at the community level. It is aimed at the local level. It is aimed for sports groups, for any organization that wants to take part in climate action. And you don't need to be a charity. You can be a community and volunteer group. Of course, that is absolutely fine. And of course, when you're making your application, your project must hit a few different targets. For example, you will be asked to submit a budget. It must be realistic. It doesn't necessarily need to be overly detailed, but it does need to have some top level figures on that. In terms of the projects that might be ineligible, we don't necessarily want to fund projects that are already completed. Of course, it has to be new or it has to be scaled up initiatives. We would like to fund, or it needs to be funded, at least 50% of the total cost. So if you have an idea in mind that's going to cost, or an awareness raising piece, for example, that costs €4,000, you can apply for €2,500 of that. And that's absolutely fine. We're more than happy to make up the difference, provided we're funding at least 50% of that total cost. And this next section, what does awareness, engagement, and activation look like? Now, these questions, these aren't going to be in the application form, but they're ways for you to think about your community and what way you can engage with your community. How do you, I suppose, when you're writing your application, how to think about these questions? How do they relate to what you're trying to do in your local area and in your community? Because one of the facets of the engagement fund is that we want to reach those hard to reach audiences. We want to reach a wider network. It's about building your organization and also bringing people into your organization. It's about reaching out to areas of the community or members of the community who might not have engaged previously with climate action. And this is an opportunity for you to try to engage them, have events that are engaging them, have leaflet distributions that can target them as well. And those 5 questions, I think, are a nice way just to think about the types of work that you're doing at your local level. Because as Rob said, we know that there's fantastic work going on across the country, but it can be a little bit siloed, and that's what that's what the Climate Actions Work program has kind of found through the National Dialogue and the various stakeholder engagements, that it's about bringing those together. It's about collaboration. And this fund is a great opportunity to try and help you with those costs and with those admin costs. This fund is also supported by climate action training, which will be in collaboration with Dublin City University, and this is part of the Climate Actions Work program. You can find links on the Environment, Climate and Communications website, and there'll be a link. There's also a link to that at the bottom of this document, which you can see later on. So there's lots of great training programs for local climate action and climate awareness and engagement. So when you're making your application, you will have to submit some documentation just to try and this is part of our governance and due diligence checks that we take on any applicant that we receive. And this is going to be done through the grants portal, which I'll be taking you through in a second. But these are just some of the documents that you will have to have in order to be able to be eligible for a grant from the Community Foundation. So first of all, you do need to have a mission statement or a constitution or a memorandum of articles of association. Depending on the level your organization is at, you'll have one or the other or the other. And this helps us understand what kind of organization you are. It helps us, make sure that you're an organization that has the correct governance structures in place, that you can handle a grant that would be processed to you. You will need your own dedicated bank account for your organization, which is, I think, quite straightforward. We do ask for a list of your committee members or board members, depending if you're quite large. But for most organizations, I think this will be committee members and the length of time they've been serving. And of course, the fourth point is around annual accounts or financial statements. Now, this might seem a little bit daunting. I assure you it isn't. If you're a new organization, or if you're a small community group, a tidy town, or a local biodiversity group, or a community center, what we're looking for here is 12 months worth of statements, just to show that you're actually taking, care of your accounts, that you're keeping track of your incomings and outgoings, or that you keep track of profit and loss for the year. If you are a large organization, if you are a charity that's over 100,000 a year in income, these do have to be audited. But if you're a small community group with income of less than that, they don't have to be audited. Of course, they don't have to be. They do just have to be signed by somebody on the committee, just to show that there is kind of oversight on your end and that there is financial controls in place. So the timeline for this fund. So this fund is running until 4 p.m. on 4th of October. I would encourage you to log on to our grantee portal quite a bit before then, just to make sure that you're a bit familiar with it before you make your application and to upload their governing documents. Again, I'll take you through that in a few minutes. We're looking to inform everybody of the outcome probably around November time, likely the end of November, barring any delays. But and we're aiming for any organization to have their work started in the new year. So that's kind of when you're out making your application, there is a little section for asking for timelines. And January is kind of when we expect you to start. We don't expect you to start before the end of the year, particularly in the run up to Christmas, which is obviously a very busy time for people. We will be asking for a quick check-in in the end of July. Now, that's very soft touch. It is simply asking, it'll simply be a few questions. How are you getting on? Any highlights, any challenges, just so that we're keeping that communication going with groups and just to make sure that everything is going well. And always, if you are successful in this round, always know that you can come to us if there's any issues or if there's any delays. We're a very communicative, accessible organization in that respect. And after the 12 months, now again, your project doesn't necessarily have to be 12 months or 10 months or 8 months or whatever. That's up to you to decide. But when your project is finished and your funding has been spent, we are looking for just a report back. Now, we'll provide all these templates for you, don't worry, just so that we understand what has happened, how has it gone. And the reason we ask for these reports is also that we can learn ourselves, so that we understand, well, how has your experience been with this process? How has the community engagement been? Have you had pushback? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And this helps form sort of future funding opportunities, whether through ourselves or whether through the Department of the Environment. And again, those are not too onerous. I really don't want to give the impression that people are having to fill out these reams of paper. They're quite accessible. They're not too long, and they have a huge benefit to us and to the Department of the Environment in shaping how future climate work gets done and the future grant processes that are in place. And before I go into the how to apply, I just want to, if you do scroll down further to the bottom, you'll learn a little bit more about us, about Community Foundation Ireland, and of course about the Climate Actions Work Programme. And further scrolling down, you can hear there's a link to the Climate Action Plan, of course, and further down here there is a link to other funding opportunities and more information about Climate Action Fund itself. So now I'm just going to take you through the application process. So at this stage, you'll have read the criteria. You may have an idea of what you want to apply for, and you can click here. and this will take you to our website. Now, on this page, there is some information about the nitty-gritty of applying for funding and how to access the portal. This page has some very good tips. I'm not going to go through this page. I'm actually going to give you a practical demonstration, which I think will be much handier for people. And you can access the portal, this here button, and that will take you to this screen. Now, if many people on this webinar will have probably received grants from us in the past, and they may have even been onto our portal filling out reports or applying for other rounds. And if that's the case, you'll have your login details already. Simply log in, and I'll show you then what you see in a second. But if you're a new organization, actually, no, sorry, I'll say something else first. If your organization has applied to Community Foundation before, it's very likely that you will be on the system, even if that's 3, 5, 7 years ago. It's likely your organization will be on the system. Now, you might be a new person to that organization, and if that's the case, and if you haven't logged on to the portal and you don't think you're there, you can click on this register here button. And this is going to ask you to fill out if you're part of an organization and you want to see, well, are you on the system, just so you can see the history of your organization's granting through us. You can start typing in your organization name. I'm just going to type in Tally Towns, for example, and you'll see a list of Tally Towns that are already on the system. You can have a look to see if your organization is there. And if your organization is there, you'll select it on this bar and you'll fill in your personal details here just so that you have your account on the system. You'll tick the boxes. You're not a robot, I hope, and you're going to click on submit. Now, if you're a brand new organization to the Community Foundation and you've never applied to funding for us before, you can simply click here to add a new organization. You'll be taken to this screen. You'll know yourself. Some of you will be cooperatives, some of you will be primary schools, some of you will be sports bodies, some of you will be CLGs, etc., etc. I'm just going to click on primary school just as an example what happens. So if most pages are quite similar. Obviously, this question about DECC programs is going to be unique to primary schools. This is where you enter in your organization name. Are you a registered company? Are you a registered charity? Etc., etc. And you will fill in your contact details. And this is just to set you up on the system so that you're on the grantee portal, so that you can upload documents, and so that you can then keep track of any future funding opportunities with Community Foundation Ireland. And once you've hit submit, and similarly, if I just go back to the other page, if you're a new person to an organization and you hit submit, that's going to be sent to us. We're going to get an alert and we will approve you on the system. And we tend to do that within 24 hours. Obviously, we can only do that during working hours as well. So if you do end up registering on the system in the evening time, for example, it may be the next day before you actually get access to the system once we approved it. And I'm just going to show you now. So once you've done that, once we have approved you on our end, you'll receive an email just showing you how to log in. And once you log in and you set up a password, you will be taken to, this will be the home screen. I'm just going to zoom out a small bit just so you can see the whole thing. This is the home screen then that you'll see once you log in. And this is where you'll see if you're an organization who has previously been funded, you'll see your history here. You'll see anything that's due here. And of course, you'll see funding opportunities here. Now, going back to the documents that you'll have to upload, you'll be clicking into the Update My Organization's profile here, and that's where you're going to, oh, okay, 1 second. Sorry about that now. To log in. So once you have logged in, Update Organization's profile, yeah, as I say, that is where you will be uploading your governance documents and giving us a little bit more information about the structure of your organization. And when you've done that and when you're ready to apply, you'll see the funding opportunities button here. Click into it and you'll see the Climate Actions Work Engagement Fund 2024. And we've also provided a application help guide here. This is a downloadable Word document, which I'm going to open. I'm just going to save it here. And I'm just going to take you very quickly through this. so that you can have a look and see what this looks like. This is a very useful document if you want to work on your application offline with others. This goes through the various different questions that are on the application form and the different pages. So this is a useful document if you want to work offline. Again, a lot of the questions revolve around demographics and age groups that you're aiming to work with. So I think that's kind of everything from my end. I think I'm happy to take any Q&A questions now if people want to pop in their questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I think, Rosie, do you want to guide me to any questions?
Yeah, I have put some of the questions in a chat to you. So if you want to have a look there, we can start going through them.
Lovely. So where can you find the application form? So I've been through a couple of these, but the question around how many times can your group apply? You can only apply once. Only apply once, please. You won't actually be allowed to apply more than that. So you won't be allowed to start multiple application forms. Now, if you're part of a network, you can apply for an awareness raising piece by yourself, but the lead organization cannot apply more than once. Can you apply to multiple strands? Again, no, you can't. It's just the one strand that you can apply for. Can you work with multiple organizations as part of this project? Yes, absolutely. That is a key component of this. We would love to see those types of applications. If we are partnering with another organization who is applying, how many times can we do this? Once. Once, please. What kind of things can we put in a budget? So can we include staff costs or equipment costs? Or working with an advisor consultant, including their hours? Yes. And in fact, we would actually encourage that organizations who want to bring in consultant or advisors for a day, for an information day, for example, yes, we can do that. Now, again, I'll really stress that this is an engagement fund. So the focus of any project or any proposal or budgets must be around that communications and engagement piece. So if you are wanting to bring an expert, whether they're a botanist, an ecologist, or whoever, do understand that that must only be a small part of the proposal, because it's community engagement is what we want. So that must be the core ask of your application. How much can we apply for? And how much, if we apply for 2,500, will we get the full 2,500? We'll probably take that on a case-by-case basis, but it's very likely that if you apply for 2,500, if you are successful, of course, we will be giving the full amount to organizations. We are a very small organization. Could you share an example of a 12-month income and expenditure spreadsheet? So I might actually take that offline. If whoever asked that question, if you want to just send an email to info@foundation.ie, we can maybe go through that kind of offline. I don't want to share an example just for GDPR reasons at the moment. Can invasive species removal be part of a wider community engagement program? So those types of projects, invasive species removal, for example, you can only apply for those if you are already part of a network, and if that's only a small part. Remember, this is an engagement fund. So for example, if you're working with a network of organizations, if you're a tidy town working with a local school and a local GAA club, and you want to raise awareness of the invasive species removal that you're doing, that's fine, because you're trying to build that network and you're trying to engage wider members of the community and new audiences, then yes, you can, but remember, the core of this funding must be around engagement. What kind of training is available? Actually, Rob, would you want to speak on that, if that's okay? I think Rosie might have to just unmute Rob.
Thanks, Jason. So I talked to training. I might come back on one or two sort of nuances of the other points being raised as well, if that's okay for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of the overall, again, climate actions work program, that we realized that in addition to the provision of funds, as Jason's already gone through, specifically for, you know, small level communications and the promotion of engagement and activation, one of the key challenges we found is that there's a lot of different excellent activity going on. So we wanted to learn from what's happening. So we've developed what we're calling a toolkit or a guidebook on effective engagement at a community level on climate action, and we're providing training. So the training comes in two different guises. There's going to be 3 one-day in-person training sessions on what best practice engagement looks like and how to go about developing and delivering your own engagement program. And there's going to be a lighter touch 2-hour online version of that training program as well. We're going to be running 3 of each of those training sessions between now and the end of the year. We may or may not have the training actually being delivered before the proposals are submitted, but it would be kind of our ambition that any people who are successful in the funding would then take part in that training to help them build that engagement program more effectively. Can I just touch on 1 or 2 of the other points raised, Jason? It might help provide a bit of clarity. Just in terms of the staff costs. So I think, as Jason said, we would encourage, in fact, if you want to bring expertise from outside in, and we've heard from community groups that that's a challenge. That could also include things like proposal development. If you're looking at developing an activation project, if you want to get some sort of proposal support or administrative support, that's also fine. We wouldn't expect that it's, you know, the entirety certainly of the project. So i.e., if you have a 10,000 euros, it's not 10,000 euros to go to a consultant. That part of that is actually about the engagement, communications, etc. Other things that could be included in consultancy, which came up in previous conversations, are if you want to pay for social media or pay somebody that might design some communications things for you, that's all fine too. But we wouldn't pay for specific staff costs, i.e., I think as Jason said at the start, this is for future endeavors, for a future project that's very specific. So we could pay for possibly some administrative time, but we wouldn't be giving, say, 5,000 to be allocated against an existing staff member's time. That wouldn't be something we'd look at. So yeah, I think that's really the main points that I wanted to cover. So we will be communicating about that training program. I think it's online now, so you can actually register your interest. It's on the Climate Actions Work website, and we will be communicating then with all people who register an interest about the availability of different training dates pretty soon.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Rob. A few more questions have come in. What does this mean? Projects where the grant makes up more than 50% of the organization's, I presume that's annual income. So that's a safeguard that we have. So if you're an organization that is very small, we wouldn't, as a safeguard, as part of our own due diligence, we would prefer to, if your income, for example, is 18,000 a year, we would be a bit more reluctant to give you 10,000 just because we need to understand it, whether you as an organization are able and have the financial sort of capacity to monitor a grant of that size. Now, for new organizations who might not have any annual income just yet, we can take them on a separate basis, and we tend to be they will only be eligible to apply for up to 2,500 anyway, or up to 5,000. But that would be the limit for them, unless they're a part of a wider network. Can an international organization apply for funding? No, you must be based in Republic of Ireland. Another question, are social media ads eligible if it is for community engagement? I think that is probably eligible. I think you would need, yeah, it is eligible. I think you would need to be able to prove that in an application, that it is a good investment, I suppose, for the fund, and that it's a good, that there will be a benefit from it. I suppose my concern would be that it's quite hard, that it might be eligible, but I don't know how strong of an application that would be. There would have to be a little bit more to it, I think. Where can we find the recording of this webinar? So this webinar will be put up on the Community Foundation Ireland website afterwards, on the same apply for funding page, and it'll also be on the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications Climate Actions Work website, or Climate Actions Work section of the website. I will also be publishing it on social media as well. So It'll be widely available, but I think we should also be able to send people a link to this. Anybody who is registered and anybody who is attending here, afterwards we can send you a link directly via email to the recordings or to the recording. And again, if anything hasn't been covered, do send us an email, info@foundation.ie. We're always happy to help. We are very accessible. If you need to talk over things in a little bit more detail, we can absolutely do that over the phone or something as well. So just, is there any final questions? I'll just give it a minute just to see if anybody has any last minute ones. And again, if you have a very specific question related to your project or your local area, maybe that's better to just to send us an email instead. If there are several project partners, do you need financial details and documentation for all partners or just the lead partner? Just the lead partner is fine. Whoever is the lead, whoever is making the application, those are the documents that we need. We don't need everybody's documents. But we do need, we just need to know who is part of, who are the partners, just their names, that's it. Okay, I think we will wrap it up there, will we? Where can we find a Word version of the app form? So when you log on to our grantee portal and you click on the funding opportunities, there is a Word application help guide there. But if you're struggling to find it, again, send us an email and we can email you a copy of it. That's no problem at all. I think Rob, you wanted to come back in?
Thanks. I just spotted one question about this has come up in some of our conversations. Can communities from 2 different towns apply? So the focus of the fund is to support sort of communities, i.e. of place, to come together more effectively. That being said, I think as Jason's kind of already suggested, obviously it's on a case-by-case basis. If there's a very logical reason why 2 towns are applying for a piece of work that actually helps them engage with each other more effectively and learn from each other and co-create something, then yes, we'd be happy to look at that. I think we've seen some really good examples of where different communities have come together and learned from each other, i.e. somebody's successful in developing an SEC somewhere and others are struggling with it. So yes, if we can demonstrate co-learnings, et cetera, then we'd be happy to see that. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So yeah, listen, thank you very much to Rob and to Rosie. And thank you very much from me as well. So thank you so much for attending today. Again, this webinar will be, it has been recorded and it will be online very shortly. Any questions at all, please send us an email, info@foundation.ie, and we'll take it from there. So thank you very much and best of luck in your applications. Bye-bye.